And my phone's off this time. Keeping that phone off, it's not ringing. We are live, Mr. Jose Sabal. Happy Black Friday. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm not going out to purchase anything. But yes, everything is fine. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, same here. I'm not going to be going out and buying anything. I would imagine now with the pandemic and COVID and all this type of stuff, that online sales are just going to go through the roof.
Yeah, of course, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does. It does.
Even though that sometimes my wife says that when you are buying, for example, clothing or buying shoes or something, you better be there to to try it to see if it fits you or not. Well, maybe in that case, it will be better. But at the end, you can return everything.
Absolutely. So come on in, everybody, and we're happy you're here on this Friday after Thanksgiving. This is Bryan and Jose, and we're talking food safety chat, everything food safety. So please go into the comments and say hello to us and tell us what you're doing on this Friday, where in the world you are. I am in Loveland, Colorado, which is kind of up by Fort Collins. So if you're not familiar with that area or the U.S., it's about an hour north of Denver, Colorado, along the mountains. So very pretty area to live in. A little bit of snow here yesterday down in the Denver area. So lots of it's a bad wreck
Wow.
I saw on the news this morning. So that's a bad start to somebody's Friday.
So what I did yesterday, as part of my you know what is strange, Brian, that our kids are grown ups. So they say, "Hey guys, what about if we celebrate our Thanksgiving Day on Wednesday night?
Really?
So on Thursday we can go to our significant others celebration."
Ah,
So that's what we did. So yesterday I rode my bike, and I got I'm getting better. I rode 30.22 miles.
nice, nice.
Yeah,
Doing better than I am. Let's see. So, Fariba, good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. Fariba, appreciate the comment here. So we have a person. Oh my goodness, I'm going to totally mess up this first name. Uh, oh, I don't even know where to start. Olawumi. Jose, how would you say that? Olawumi.
I
Apologies.
guess.
I'm totally destroying that. We need good morning, Andrew. Good morning. Hopefully things are warm where you're at as well. Cheryl, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Man, glad to have these people here. Yeah, we did. Oh, hey, I keep forgetting, Jose. Everybody, so if you have a drink handy with you, I have my cup of coffee.
Oh yes, we need
Yeah,
our coffees.
gotta
Yep,
have it.
I'm
Jose
going
has
to. Well, actually, I
beautiful,
have tea. Remember.
yes, his manly teacup. Everybody join us. Just say Woomy. Thank you. Thank you, Woomy. I appreciate that. Always good to start off with your coffee in the morning. So we were going to have Thanksgiving at my house with my brother and sister live in the Denver area, and the family was going to come up here for Thanksgiving. But of course we didn't do that. Um, so what my wife and I did is, so we love to travel and go around the world and stuff like that, and we love all things Japan. So we had a Japanese style meal for Thanksgiving. So we had sushi and something called takoyaki, which are small little round octopus balls they call them. So
Wow.
it's like the European, it's like ebiskivel from the Danish. So there's these little round balls that you build and eat those. And we had a little bit of sake with that, of course, and played some Japanese classical contemporary music on YouTube in the background. It was a lot of fun. It was fun.
Oh wow! And you made the meal, Brian?
I love to cook. I love to cook.
Wow. Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, so
Great.
we eschewed the traditional turkey gravy potato meal and had a little bit of fun instead. Now,
Great.
now, as normally is the time that you put out your Thanksgiving decorations out front, and so you have those big inflatable yard things, right? And I think I was telling you about this. So tomorrow is the day I'm going to put out the 8.5 foot tall Star Wars walker, right? The big AT-AT thing from Star Wars. I'm going to put that on my front lawn. and
Oh, okay.
we'll see what my neighbors think. So we'll see where all that kind of goes. So I think that kind of segues nicely into, and this is fun. We've got this nice ticker now. Our topic for today, a special request, right? Corrective and preventative action, right? So I may need to do some corrective actions with my neighbors after they get really irritated with me for doing this. I don't know, but it was funny. We were talking a little bit before we went live here about, right. So under FSMA, it's preventive actions, but
Yeah.
before FSMA came along, and this is still the way it's written in SQF, right, is preventative action, right? So now we've got to kind of flip back and forth between the terminology. So we're going to kind of give our inputs here in our businesses and what we've done in our operational side of things and all this good stuff on what are good programs and how you do these things. But more importantly, too, we want everybody's feedback on this. So please, in the comments, what are some thoughts you have around, as we're talking about this, around corrective and preventative actions, and what are some good examples from your world from these things? And so we'd love to comment on those and see what you guys are thinking as well, too. So let's dive in.
So look at this. Talking first about the word, which is something that create a little bit of curiosity in me, Brian, because for me, English is my second language. So I said, well, which one is the right word? Because in Spanish, we only have one word for that.
Yeah.
It's, something similar to preventive. Uh, and I said, why having two words for the same thing? So I did a little bit of a research online, and it looks like, and I'm not sure if the sources I was reading, Merriam-Webster and other, renowned dictionaries, seems like the right word is preventive, but somehow at some point, people start using preventative, and it just, you know,
Kind of stuck.
kind of stuck, and people were using that. So the FDA is using preventive, not preventative. And if you look at the ISO vocabulary, ISO 9000, for the meaning of the words using the ISO world, the right word is preventive.
Makes sense. I mean, and when it gets down to it, though, I mean, it's kind of a distinction without a difference, right? Other than it kind
Yeah,
of makes you silly if you say it wrong in the wrong context.
yeah. At the end, what we are going to do here, we're not going to debate about what how do we call the word itself. What we're going to be doing is discussing what is the meaning. What do you need to do, or any of you hearing us, what do you need to do whenever you have a deviation or a non-conformity in your system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that topic then, so I pulled out the SQF version 9, right? So the new standard, which is available on their website. So if you are SQF certified, version 9 goes live May 22nd. So if you're SQF certified, after that date, you're going to be audited to that. Currently it's 8.2, but you should be getting ready for 9 now. So here's what 9 says, right? So under 2.5.3, corrective and preventative actions, it's very short, right? It's only a couple little paragraphs. So the responsibility and methods, outlining how corrective and preventative actions are determined, implemented, and verified, including the identification of the root cause and resolution of non-compliance of critical food safety limits and deviations from food safety requirements, shall be documented and implemented, right? So this is the food safety code, right? So they're talking specifically about that. Next paragraph, records of all investigation, root cause analysis, and resolution of nonconformities or corrections and implementation of preventative actions shall be maintained. That's it, right? That's all they're saying. And people get very confused by this. Before you get even into the kind of the guts of it, Jose, one thing that people get really hung up on, and if you're a quality manager, you read this and you think that this means that you have to do a corrective action for everything, right? If you deviate from what you're saying you do, you automatically have to do a corrective action. And that's not necessarily true.
That is correct. That is correct because you need to have a systematic deviation or something that will really going against or not against, but not following the requirements in order for you to set up a correction and corrective action. Most likely a correction is going to be implemented
Right.
even if it's very simple and maybe you are not going to be documenting this. You find one person, and this is the example, Brian, one person in, I don't know, let's say that your facility you have 50 people, they all are wearing hairnet, and you find one that is not wearing that hairnet properly. You just tell that person, hey, you have a little bit of hair here, please make sure, and that's it. You
Yeah.
don't need correction and corrective action for that. Now
Right.
you go into the floor and you see that 30 or 40 people are not wearing the hairnet properly. That's the different story.
That's a really good example. So you brought up a word in there. I want to make sure that people caught that is correction, not corrective actions, right? A correction is, hey, you're not wearing your hairnet right. Get it over your ears. Oh, sorry, right? Corrective. Or
Yep,
you just corrected
that's
him.
it.
That's it, right? So then to your point, a corrective action would be you go out on the floor. And to your example, there's all kinds of people not wearing hairnets. That means something didn't go right. Maybe they didn't understand the training. Maybe they weren't at training. You need to investigate.
Yeah,
Now,
because Brian, the thing is that we need to make sure that everybody understands that this we're talking about a system again, and I'm going back each and every single time about this. In systems, the main reason why we develop systems is to achieve consistency on what we're doing.
mhm,
And whenever we have a deviation or a nonconformity against the requirements, is when we are going to implement corrections and corrective action. The reason for doing this is to achieve continuous improvement, which is a
mhm,
reason number two why you set up systems.
exactly right. So one of the things that I always teach my quality managers in the past was the basics are often the best, right? So corrective and preventative actions. And the example of PDCA, right? Plan, do, check, act. No one expects perfection, right? You're going to find things, right? So if you have a good environmental monitoring program in your ready to eat facility, if you are aggressively looking for listeria, you should find it, right? It's going to be in the
Oh,
drain.
yeah,
It's somewhere,
of
right?
course.
So then you need to take correction to prevent that from spreading all over the place, and then maybe do an investigation to find out why you had that there. But FDA will raise their eyebrows much more if in that example you have no positives, because that's very suspicious, because you should be finding it.
Yeah.
So way I would always explain with PDCA is what you're doing is we have a program, to your point, right? We have a system that we're following. Here's how we record that we're following it. And if things don't go quite the way we thought, here's how we then go back and go through a mechanism to put us back on track. That's
Hmm.
it.
Yep. And you know what, Brian? I pull, and this is something that I have open here. I open up my ISO 9000 vocabulary because
Mhm.
I was able to see that for Riva and Edward in the chat, they are talking about, well, this is a corrective action, this is a correction. So let's share with you guys what is the definition that is in the ISO world. That's, in my opinion, that is the most reliable source of information for definitions of these words.
I agree.
So in 3.12.3 of the ISO 9000, we have the definition of a correction. And it says it's an action to eliminate a detected nonconformity.
Hmm.
So this correction actually is your fix. We're going to fix this by doing this, and you fix the problem right away. That's a definition of a correction.
The internet thing. Okay.
Now, in 3.12.2, we have the definition of a corrective action. And the definition of a corrective action, it says, is an action to eliminate the cause of the nonconformity and then to prevent its reoccurrence. So every time basically that we are talking about corrective actions, we're talking about two things. Number one, identifying the root cause of the problem. And number two, doing something to prevent its reoccurrence.
Right? Absolutely. And then the way I think about preventative then is the easiest way is trend analysis, right? So if you see over a period of time that things are getting worse and you can take some action to stop that trend from continuing, you're preventing further actions, right? So if you had a series, so let's use your hairnet example, and we'll see if you like this example. So correction, hey, fix your hairnet. Corrective actions. Okay, there's several people in the plant who aren't wearing their hairnet correctly. I need to do an investigation to find out why. Is it the training program or whatever? Preventive action would be, okay, I've noticed in my overall training program several areas where things aren't working as well as I think. Maybe I need to go back and reevaluate my entire training program to see if it's actually effective.
Yep. Yep, right away. And look at this, Brian, because the last definition that is here in the ISO 9000 in 3.12.1 is the definition of a preventive action. And look at this, because this is a typical confusion between a corrective action and a preventive action. Preventive action says is an action to eliminate the cause of a potential nonconformity. So actually, the real difference between a corrective action and a preventive action is that in the case of a corrective action, you must have a nonconformity in order to proceed. In the case of a preventive action, just because of trends or an audit or inspections or something, you may see that something will happen in the future. You will have a nonconformity, a deviation, if you are not doing something, but you don't have that right now.
Right. That's a really good line to distinguish that. So
And
Wumi had a
the
comment
requirements are the same. Sorry to interrupt you, Brian. The
here.
requirements are the same. You need to go through the root cause of that potential nonconformity and then try to do something to prevent reoccurrence.
Mm-hmm. Nope, that makes total sense. And Wumi had the comment here for us where people get corrective action and preventative actions confused, right? They interchange those words, but they're different things. And I think the way you defined that was perfect. Something has happened, something will happen, right? And we need to prevent that from happening.
That is correct. So fully understanding the meaning, and that's a reason why Brian, I decided to read that straight from the ISO, is because, I mean, if we try to identify the right source, the reliable source of information for all of these definitions, we should go to the root of all of these, which is the ISO.
Right. I just thought of an example here too. So driving a car, right? I got in a wreck, right? So my corrective action is going to be to fix the car, right? And then take some training, go to a driver's school. So hopefully I don't have another wreck in the future, preventing that future wreck. So hopefully I can become a better driver, right? An accident or preventing an accident.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a very good example. So let me try to see, Brian, look at this. So again, 9, 10 years of auditing, SQF, FSSC, internal, programs for Kraft and McDonald's and Burger King and so on. After I'm done with my auditing job, the next step is naturally provide a report to the facility that was audited. And it is their responsibility to go through corrections and corrective actions.
Right.
And they are expected to return those to me so I can read and see how they went through that process. So, in my experience, only a few companies fully understand, and I don't want to say companies, people, because this is about people understanding these terms. Only just a few of them were capable of writing down I did this to fix a problem. This is the root cause of that problem after our investigation, and this is what we did. These are all the things that we investigate.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do in order to try, watch out, because it's an attempt in order to try to prevent this from happening again, is this.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of highlighting the try, because you will actually never know until you put that preventive action in place if it's going to work or not.
Right. It may not. It may not.
It may not. And hey, and by the way, Bryan, that's fine. If it does not work, that's fine. You just go back to the root cause. You keep on working there, and you try to set up another prevention of reoccurrence.
Right. Well, I mean, so as a, you can comment on this as an auditor. I'll comment this as head of quality of food company. So we would have an issue. We had a complaint, and I would contact the plant and tell the plant manager and the quality manager, hey, you guys need to investigate this and get back with the corrective action to me so that I can tell the customer what you did to fix this. If I got the response back quickly, and I got the response back that said, we trained some people, I was always disappointed, right? It was like, oh yes, the operator forgot to do this and we retrained him. Really? That's your answer? That told me that they didn't do a thorough investigation.
Yeah. And you know what? In my opinion, Bryan, the fix, it's something that most of the people can work perfectly fine. They somehow are going to find the way to fix the problem. Now, when they move from the fix, from the correction to the corrective action, the first step should be root cause analysis. And now here is when people will say, oh, okay, I'm going to use the 5 whys, without knowing and understanding how the 5 whys work. That's one thing. But
Right.
now, question: how complex is the situation? Because if it's very complex, the real thing in systems is that most likely you're going to have more than one root cause. And this is something that people, I mean, it's very difficult to understand unless you have been in that position investigating root causes. So,
Mhm.
possibly, which is the most likely outcome of the root cause analysis, is that you're going to have several root causes. So your prevention of reoccurrence must be attacking each of those and improving each of those.
Right. Well, part of this too, right, is in my quality manager example, a lot of times that quality manager will just take that on himself or herself and do that investigation. This needs to be a team activity in the plant.
It is.
So you need to
It
get these
is.
different, because to your point, Jose, then if you have the maintenance manager and the operations manager and the quality manager, some people from the floor, all these people on the team to investigate, they're going
Mhm.
to give you those perspectives. So if the issue was in my example where a operator on a line didn't do something correctly, okay, well, was it training? Was the machine not working correctly? To your example, maybe sanitation didn't happen right. What was it, right? To your point, there was probably many things that came together at that point in time to create that deviation.
And you say training. Let me go deeper there. Okay,
Sure.
let me use the Ishikawa. Let me use the fish bone, and I'm going
Mhm.
to say, oh, really? Is it training? Fine. What was the problem? Because the problem could be that, for example, number one, the way that the written procedure on how to perform that activity was not properly, you know,
They didn't
the
follow it.
procedure do not have enough details. What
Hmm.
about that?
Yeah.
That could be the reason. So you may have a very good trainer, very knowledgeable about the topic, but the procedure that is going to be followed, you're supposed to be sharing that copy of that procedure with all of those that will be following that procedure. Well, the procedure do not have enough detail. So let me give a very good example, and this is the one that I love to use when I'm teaching these classes. So the requirements of the FDA and any other, regulation around the world require that you train people on hand washing. Okay.
Yeah.
And also SQF and BRC and FSSC and IFS and Global Gap and all of the GFSI require the same thing. Good. Let me write a control procedure for that. So, what is the difference between one procedure where the how is going to say, wash your hands, that's it, and another procedure that will say, for example, okay, you need to first identify where is the hand washing station because you cannot go outside to wash your hands. Then over there, you need to open the water, put your hands under the water, rub your hands to remove any excess, and then rub the soap and rub your soap. And you are going detail, very detailed procedure. And then have a trainer that is very knowledgeable on how that procedure is performed for that facility. Because a trainer may know how to wash his or her hands, but that doesn't mean that you are following the procedure that was developed for that specific company. So at
Mm,
this point, you have that you may have the root cause as the written procedure was not right. The other root cause is that the trainer was not knowledgeable and capable of that procedure.
mhm.
The other thing could be that you don't have the right culture in your company because as soon as you are done with a beautiful procedure, and that's exactly what you're sharing, and then you have a very knowledgeable trainer, you see that, and I'm going to say as an example, the general manager of the company walks into the floor without hand washing.
Yes,
That could be the
absolutely.
root cause.
Right. Well, he doesn't do it. I don't have to do it.
Of course, human
Why?
nature.
Right. Or it could be too from your example, right? As you do your investigation, you have a beautiful hand washing procedure. Everybody is trained perfectly. And you go and follow up to the hand wash sink and the water's cold.
Yeah.
Or you don't have soap or paper
Yep.
towel or whatever,
Good,
right?
good point.
Right.
Good point.
All these things can you need to do that. We have a good question here from Cheryl. How do small companies, really small companies, handle this with like 5 employees? That's a good question, Jose. What would you say to Cheryl?
Okay, so Cheryl, I remember auditing a company in Miami. It was well, let me give you an idea. It was basically a warehouse where husband, wife, and the cousin of the wife of the husband, I don't recall exactly, that's a company, 3 people.
Yeah.
And they had an SQF program in place. So you're talking about five? I'm sure I'm giving you the example of three, okay, where they spending a lot of time in documenting whatever they do and spending time in doing this. Yes, they are. Do they need a lot of training to cover all the requirements of the SQF? Of course, yes. Are they spending a lot of time in making sure that they update their system and that they have everything? Yes, they are. Okay, but again, it's a lot of time consuming. Let me put it that way. Now, is it possible to do it? Of course it is. Actually, the less people that you have, assuming that all of them are very knowledgeable about systems and proper implementation, the easier the system will be to maintain working properly
And a
because
good way
you
to think
have
about it,
less chances to fail.
true, very true. A good way to think about this as well, Cheryl, is that when you're small like this is the perfect time to start putting the good habits into place. So you're looking at this from, to Jose's point, at a system level, right? This is when to have the good document control and hand washing procedures and hairnet wearing, all these type of things, and building and tweaking that. And to Jose's point, this may take some time, but that investment is going to pay off because once you get to 50 or 100 employees, that gets a lot harder, right? And if you have a bad training process in place at 5 people, you're going to have a terrible training process in place at 100.
And look at this one. And I remember this from an actual consulting job, Brian. So this company has 300 and something employees. And during their own internal audits, they identified that there was a procedure that was not working properly.
Mhm.
Okay. That procedure was identified not working properly because 5 employees out of a group of 12, 13, 15, it was a bigger group, but only 5 employees were identified not following properly that procedure. So you identify the problem because it's not an isolated issue. Yes, I need to correct and implement corrective actions.
Mhm.
Now, as soon as you identify the root cause and as soon as you set up something to prevent reoccurrence, at that point, of course, you are going to be retrained those 5. And my question is, and what about the other 10? Because the others were also following exactly the same procedure. Do you have that in your scope? It's
Yeah.
not just about retraining the employee that failed. It's about making sure that anyone that is trained on that same procedure is aware of that problem, and that person is going to be, I'm going to say, retrained to make sure that that is not going to happen again.
Right. Well, and part of this too, and I think this gets back to what Cheryl was talking about as well too, is try and design these things without making your life unlivable, right? So it gets back to a comment I made early on. You don't have to, just because you have something that fails, you don't necessarily have to have a corrective action. You can have a correction, right? And if it's a
Yes.
bigger issue, you can move to corrective action. So you have to pick your battles, right? You have to, as the person in charge of these programs, say, yes, this requires corrective action. What we did at a company I used to run quality for is we had what were known as quality alerts. So we sold products, retail products, CPG products. And if we had one complaint for a product, and a product was defined as an SKU on the same packaging, line out of the same plant, on the same shift, on the same day, right? If we had one complaint, okay, not too good, right? If we had 3 complaints, now keep in mind this is a over a $3 billion company. If we had 3 complaints with those criteria, that would then trigger the quality alert. So then the regional quality manager would get with the plant, and then we would begin the investigation. So if you make your life difficult and you try and do this process as we're describing it for everything, to Cheryl's point, you're going to drive yourself crazy, right? You need to understand and have the training, which is why I think with like the SQFI standard and other standards that we're talking about, it's very vague when they write this, right? Which is part of the reason why people get confused, because this is a big topic, right? And you need to
Yes.
be able to figure out how to apply this properly for your organization.
Yep. And actually, I was reading Brian comment from Derek, and he said that he disagreed. And Derek, based on your comments there, I mean, you're right, of course. And what we're saying is exactly that. We read the definition of a corrective action, a preventive action from the ISO vocabulary, and it's exactly what you're saying. So
Mhm.
maybe we were not able to explain ourselves in a way that we cause a little bit of confusion, but we agree with you.
Yep. So yeah, the overall point is yes, they're separate things. We agree.
They are totally different, yes. And kind of a refresher, Derek. When we say corrective action, is because we have, based on the ISO 9000 that I'm reading here, you do have a nonconformity. But in the case of a preventive action, what you're going to be trying to look for the root cause is a potential nonconformity. So you actually don't have a deviation or nonconformity.
Mhm. Right. And on the corrective action side as well too is when you're looking at this, let's say as the quality manager, the PCQI, whoever's in charge of looking at this within the facility, that food safety, right? Obviously, I want to make sure and clarify this. Obviously, if you have a failure in food safety, you're investigating that, right? You're going to be doing that every
Yeah.
time because you could have product in the marketplace that is non-conformance with your food safety plan and your critical limits and all these type of things. So always remember to bucket those things in those 2 areas, food safety and food quality, right? Quality, you have more latitude for looking around at these different type of things. Food safety, right? You're always going to be looking at those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, Brian. Is the only thing that I can say. It's a challenge, a big challenge, and you know what? if I'm asking, hey, can you please show me the evidence? What methodology you use in order to determine the root cause? Are you trained on how to do this? Have you ever taken a class for, and I'm going to say, how to implement a fishbone diagram, an Ishikawa diagram? Have you
Right.
done that? How many times?
Exactly. Yeah. And so keep in mind, let's say that you are the PCQI, you go out and you get that training. You can then also then train the members of your team, right? Not everybody has to
Sure.
go to class. The trainer can train other people as well too. So don't let that hold you back either. I mean, that was a good point. Um, let's see, we're kind of approaching the end here. Did anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody have any good examples for us on corrective or preventative actions that you'd like to tell us during the live? As well, I mean, you can email us as well too. So as we're waiting for some comments here, let me throw up here. We've got a couple emails here. So here is Jose's email. So jose.sabal@sabalfsc.com. Nice, elegant email. I like that. Much shorter than mine. And then my email, I'll flip that over here. So I'm Bryan at foodsafetyfoundation.com. And so, of course, then this recording is available as well too. You can go back and get these off of there as well too. So, if after this you think of questions you'd like to ask us, please, I mean, fire us an email and let us know what those are.
Yeah, let's make these more interactive.
Yes, absolutely. More the better. So, Jose, any other thoughts here in closing on corrective and preventive action?
Okay, so Bryan, yes, the closing will be that I would like to highlight that whenever a deviation or a nonconformity, a deviation in your system or a nonconformity against the requirements is identified, because we are working with food, the
Mhm.
most important thing here is that we first ask ourselves one question: do we have some product involved in this deviation? Okay, because if that is the case, you need to, as the PCQI class, the Preventive Control for Human Food class says, which is exactly what is required in a system, you need to identify the quantity of product that was affected by going to the last good check. Then you need to put that product on hold. Then you need to perform an assessment to determine if the product is or not affected by that deviation. And then you need to take a a decision on the final disposition of that product. And
Mhm.
that, though, all of those four steps are still part of the correction if you have product involved in that deviation.
Mm. It's a very good point. And it kind of highlights what we've been talking about relative to systems. Everything interconnects, right? Your specifications, your processes for creation of the product, your hold and release procedures, your corrective actions, your investigations, it all links together.
Yeah. And of course, the last point, Bryan, is the documentation. Okay.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that in our documentation, whatever is the design that you guys have, make sure that you have a space for what happened, what is a deviation, and that deviation should be properly described. What was the date, what was the time, what was happening, what product was being produced, what was the law code, who was working there, who was the person that identified that deviation, um, and then a space for the question: hey, do we have some product involved in this deviation? Yes or no? If you have yes, I'm expecting to see the identification of the product on hold and assessments and so on. If no, you just go to the fix of that problem. But I need to see what was done to fix that problem, and
Yeah.
that should be documented. And then there must be another space, another section for the root cause analysis. And these root cause analysis may take some time. So it is possible that in a very well developed, you are going to have something like, okay, on this date, the team, and you said that, Bryan, well said, by the way, the team got together and did this and this and this and this and this. 2 days after that, at this time, the team got together. And after our findings during the plan, our investigation, we found this and this and this and this and this. And maybe it will take a week or we can have or 2 weeks to reach the final, reason, the root cause of that problem. Okay.
Right.
There is another section where the team is going to propose which will be the things that will be done in order to try, is an attempt in order to try to prevent that same thing from happening again.
Yep. Very well summarized, right? Which I think kind of goes back to, this is an intensive, involved practice, right? You can't do this with every
Yeah.
small thing that happens. You need to build into your procedures how you decide what things deserve this so that you can actually focus on it and make it meaningful and you don't overwhelm your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent conversation, Jose, and great comments from everybody too. Appreciate everybody's feedback on this. It makes it a lot of fun for us, and I'm sure you too, right? To get this interaction and feedback. And as you can tell, we love talking about this stuff, right? This is our passion. This is what we love, and we're here to help you. So with that, Jose, let's close this out. And of course, with the emails we put up, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. And once again, I'm Bryan Armentrout with the Food Safety Foundation with my good friend Jose Sabal from Sabal Food Safety Consulting. And we do this every Friday. Now, Jose, we're on next Friday, correct? Are you around next Friday?
Oh, let me check that, Bryan, because I saw that I got a job, but I don't recall if it was. No, next Friday we're fine.
Excellent. So Jose and I
Yep.
will be here on December 4th. Wow, December
4th.
At 8 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we'll see everybody then. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Has been a pleasure. Have a great day. Bye, Bryan.
Goodbye, Jose.